February 1 is the union budget. Today it has come out.
Yeah.
February 5, elections to Delhi. And then middle class is going to get a big bonanza it wanted and waited all these years. Obviously, nothing which this government does goes without keeping one eye on politics.
I also find the government's nuclear mission move quite significant and unprecedented.
This is going to be another major investment area for big corporates.
Hello and welcome. Thanks for streaming in. This is Talking Sense with Srini, and joining me is our editor-in-chief, Mr. Srinivasan. So thank you very much.
Yeah, hi. It's a big day today.
Absolutely. So I think lots of bonanza for the middle class, and the budget is being hailed as of the middle class, for the middle class, and by the middle class. What's your assessment of the budget?
Well, you're right, actually. The first impression is I think it's a pretty politically motivated budget.
Okay.
Look, I won't say there is any intentional, but look at the way it is arranged. February 1 is the union budget. Today it has come out.
Yeah.
February 5, elections to Delhi. And then middle class is going to get a big bonanza it wanted and waited all these years.
That's
And then you also see in the budget, if you go down, a lot of mentions of Bihar, at least 5 to 6 times. So I'm sure the coalition in Bihar and people of Bihar are damn happy that they have been mentioned so many times. So obviously, nothing which this government does goes without keeping one eye on politics. So that's what you see. But let's come back to what exactly has happened to middle class. I think it's a major bonanza. Now, what it does is following. Anybody getting up to 12 lakh rupees as an annual income may have to pay no tax. This is actually all the benefits are going under the new tax regime. The old tax regime, more or less, a signal has been given that look, it's going to wind down rather. These things are actually applicable. If you look at that, another 75,000 standard deduction. So anybody who earns 12 lakh 75,000 is exempt in the sense that may not pay any tax. You take senior citizens, another 1 lakh, so 13 lakh 75,000. So what it will do is, I just spoke to a chartered accountant. He was saying, look, the returns filed would come down because at least 20% of his clients will fall in that segment. So they need not even file income tax return.
That's right.
Because they won't be eligible. So clearly it's a big step for the middle class, and they're going to welcome. And especially in Delhi, a whole lot of government employees are there, and they're all going to cheer this. Already, the 8th Pay Commission has been announced. Now, of course, you may question what segment of middle class it's going to, help, because the definition of middle class in itself is a huge thing in India.
quite debatable,
So
yeah.
let me just look at few numbers and tell you. According to one estimate, middle class could be something between 5 lakh and 30 lakh. Another one is between 1 lakh and 6 lakh. The third one is between 2 lakh and 10 lakhs per year. These are all per year. But then Abhijit Banerjee came out with another definition. $2 to $8 per day is, people who are, could be in the lowest of the, definition of middle class. The government itself, when it gives, concession based on income, economically weaker sections, the definition is rupees 8 lakh per annum. So we really don't know, but one can say without any contradiction that this is going to help a very broad spectrum of middle class.
That's right.
Now, what does it do the economy? Maybe that's your next question. Now, having done this a big middle class favor by the government, how is it going to help the economy is the next big question.
That's right, yeah.
If you were to ask me that question, I would say, look, they are saying nearly 1 lakh crores is the amount which government is foregoing because of this one decision.
Exactly, it's 3 million.
So the estimate is they are expecting that about 70,000 crores of that will go back into the economy. And that's where the entire gamble is. That people will start once again consuming more because the consumption levels are really low, which is causing a big concern in the economy. So the idea here is that you give this tax break and then people will go, because it is estimated that on an average, at least 5,000 rupees per month, people will, save, or more money in their pocket if you go by that. So nearly 60,000 rupees. So the estimate is this money will help once again people buy more things, and then it will once again invigorate the kind of give a boost to the economy, which was kind of tethering.
That's right. So, I mean, they want to bring up the consumption levels, right? So, but, if you really look at the GDP, last quarter GDP numbers, the India's growth largely is linked to the capital expenditure as well. And that's something that we discussed the last edition of Talking Sense with Srini as well. But if you really see today's budget, there's been a slight decrease in the capital expenditure, though not dramatically. Do you see this having an impact on the economy in terms of growth?
Well, I think I won't say that they have given up completely on the capital expenditure. I think what they are now doing is to see that the other segments, whether they will pick up, because the spend on capex hasn't reduced. See, if you look at the way I think earlier also I described to you, see, 60%. If you have to look at the breakdown of where does the GDP numbers come from, 60% comes from private consumption, 55 to 60%. So by this one method of income tax, they are addressing that. And investment, basically gross capital formation, which is about 10 lakh to 21 crores. So this is the third biggest. The government expenditure will be about 10%, but this is about 30%. That to private investment must come from this. Now, how do they do that? That's the next one. So I think they seem to think that whatever the government has spent for capex is good enough, and they haven't reduced it. So if you have to look at the number, if you look at budget estimates 2024-25, as a percentage of total expenditure, the capital expenditure has been about 22.13%. And again, in the budget estimate this year, 25-26, is going to be 22.13%, exactly the same number. So they have maintained as a percentage of overall expenditure, the capital expenditure as 22.13, which is almost 1/5 of the money, the total money they're going to spend is being laid for for capital expenditure. But if you look at as a percentage of GDP, it has certainly fallen. It has come down from 3.68% to now in 23-24 to 24-25, 3.46% to now 3.14%. So there is a little slide. And if you saw in last 8 months, the reason given was because of the elections and because of the EC, various restrictions, and also heavy rains and other things. The capital expenditure could not be completely, taken up. The government couldn't spend all the money. So there is certainly whatever the fall in that, they've tried to make up by, if you have to see the same, if you look at the expenditure year-on-year basis, so the expenditure actually has increased by about 7.4%. I'm talking of year-on-year overall expenditure. So I think the plan here is that, look, if we're not been able to spend that much, we'll keep the overall expenditure at the same level. And they expect that this year, which they will get complete 12 month without any hassles like election or other such reasons which they may give, they'll have enough money to spend on capital expenditure. So to make up for that, there are two measures they have done. One, as I said, stimulating through pushing in more money into the economy. Yeah. And the second one is trying to focus on MSMEs and trying to clear various things so that sector, which has been actually lagging, whether they get any benefit. I think that's the kind of attempt.
I just want to interject you there. Yeah. I mean, do you see this as some kind of a change in strategy with the central government, because they've been talking about investments, private investments for a long time. They've been banking on corporate India for a long time. And now they're putting a lot of hopes on the MSME sector. So because because the kind of growth it can actually have on the economy, in jobs and so on. How do you see this?
Yeah, no. So the emphasis on private sector will continue. It hasn't decelerated. You see, in the budget, it's about the messaging they do. This
Okay.
time, the messaging is very, very clear. It's more about middle class. Okay. But doesn't mean that it hasn't addressed other issues. So
That's right.
those issues still remain. Like I pointed out to you, the capex actually haven't very drastically come down. It has come down as compared to last year because the spending wasn't much. I'm talking of 24, 25. But hopefully this year they will be able to make up for that. And again, they hope that by these nudges also the private sector will start investing once
That's right.
again. And the private sector, how it will invest again? If people are consuming more, then it will encourage private sector to expand their capacities. Already, if you see that the capacities of most companies are running around 70 to
75%.
70, 75%. So they have excess capacity. So they won't invest more unless they have more opportunity to
That's
sell.
right.
So the expectation is that this will also kind of nudge them to invest once again. So the investment cycle also begins. I think that's the idea. And then if you look at the other factors, why that may happen, they provided enough liquidity in the system so that the lending may happen. But it's another different question whether MSMEs actually get those lending, whether money actually
Yeah.
reach them. But there is enough liquidity
But
being
some even say it
provided.
isn't just about credit growth. What MSME needs is a large overhaul and so on.
To deal with MSMEs, a lot of structural changes also need to do. I think one thing which is important is the economic survey has also yesterday argued, and it said that the regulations overall approach should change. That
Yeah,
instead of
exactly.
asking somebody to prove guilty, proven guilty unless so there's a reverse now. If some action takes place against somebody, he need not prove upfront. The regulatory agency or somebody has to come up with a strong case against him.
That's
I
right.
think they're trying to make the whole business more comfortable for them. Sending a message that look, the enforcement agencies and other things will go against, not against everybody. So that's the kind of messaging which need to go again over and over so that the business community feels more comfortable.
I also find the government's nuclear mission move quite significant and unprecedented. With an outlay of about rupees 20,000 crore, that's quite huge, right? I'm sure that there are concerns as well in terms of safety and so on. The government is bringing in private players as well. How do you see this particular move in your perspective as a part of the government's diversification of the energy mix?
Yeah, I'll come to energy. I think that's a good question. I'll try to answer that as best as I could. But I think another important thing here is in the budget, if you look at overall, while doing all these measures by releasing 1 lakh rupees, 1 lakh crore rupees, which is basically the amount government is foregoing for the middle class, the government hasn't taken its eyes off fiscal consolidation. They are now saying that the target for 25-26 fiscal deficit is going to be only 4.4 as a percentage of GDP, which is a pretty good number.
That's right. True.
And this revised GDP as a percentage of GDP, if you look at the fiscal deficit, is also brought down to 4.8%. They have actually said 4.9, the budgeted. So they have managed even better than that.
That's right.
Now, they have managed to do this. But if you look at overall, what is the growth estimate for the next year? It's saying somewhere between 6.3% to 6.8% of GDP. That's the kind of a growth they are projecting. Now, the nominal GDP, which is the GDP plus inflation, works out to be 10.1%. That's what the budget figure says, which means they are estimating an inflation somewhere between 3.3% to 3.6%. I think it's going to be a pretty tough call because whether they can actually manage this. This would require a very tight management of economy, keeping actually supply side strong so that the inflationary tendencies don't show up again.
Yeah.
So I think that's one important issue which I thought I'll flag before coming to your question on energy. Now, look, nearly 46% of energy mix currently comes from non-renewables, and the remaining comes from fossil fuels,
That's right.
which is coal and other things. So the effort is that we also reduce our carbon footprint and go more towards renewables. So there is a target which I read in economic survey, which says that we have to equally, 50-50% both from fossil fuels and renewables. And I think the nuclear push is doing two things. Probably by saying that we'll, try to get 100 gigawatts out of this, they are now trying to more on non-renewable energy mix. They're going for that. The target by 2030, they have said that both should be 50-50%. Now, this also given a new direction in the sense that the private sector participation in this and building of small,
Nuclear power plants.
nuclear power plant. So that's another big push. I think this is going to be another major investment area for big corporates. Already after 1, 2, 3 agreements with the United States, which happened earlier during Manmohan Singh's regime, we try to import, big reactors, big capacity size power plants. But this, they're also now talking of making smaller power plants. And so the nuclear energy seems to be the new push which this government is trying to give.
As the government sticks to the target of 4.4% of fiscal deficit, the RBI MPC meet is around the corner. You think a potential rate cuts is around the corner?
Yeah, I think, like I said, there's going to be enough liquidity in the system. So that would mean that banks will have, even if the repo rates are cut, banks should have funds to, actually pass
That's
on.
right.
So I think first they have to provide that. I think this budget has tried to signal that one hand, while we are consolidating the fiscal deficit, we're also allowing enough, liquidity in the system so that it's lendable. Banks can lend. I think the onus would be now on the RBI to actually cut rates,
right.
most possibly. That's the measure. Unless they have some other calculation because of what external pressure, how the dollar-rupee equation may be, and the kind of exchange rate management, how they want to do, and looking at the pressure following Trump's arrival in the scene. So that would, but I think it'll be interesting to watch how MPC takes its decision on February 7th.
That's right. Thank you very much. A pleasure talking to you.